Hello everyone, Andrew here. In this Simplified Speech episode, you'll hear a conversation that Suzanne and I had recently about the topic of nature. And I'm going to ask you 3 listening comprehension questions right now, and I'd like you to try and find the answers while you listen to us talk. Sound good? Okay, here are the questions. Number 1. What organization was Suzanne a member of when she was a child? Number 2. What did I build in the forest behind my house when I was a child? Number 3. How old was Suzanne when she learned how to snowboard? At the end of the episode, after the ending music, I'll tell you the answers. Hey everybody, my name is Andrew.
And I'm Suzanne.
And you're listening to Culips. Hello everyone, welcome back to Culips. You are listening to Simplified Speech, which is our series where we have completely natural English conversations, but we speak just a little bit slower than we do in our everyday lives. And we let you listen in so that you can start to learn how English speakers think and learn about the kind of vocabulary and expressions we use and really just upgrade your English listening skills. And today I am not alone. I am joined by my co-host, Suzanne. Suzanne, good morning. Hello.
Good morning. Yes, morning for me.
Morning for you, evening for me. And Suzanne, I tossed it out there on Instagram to our Instagram followers and I said, guys, I'm recording with Suzanne. What should we talk about? And I got a lot of great suggestions. And one of our followers, I also assume that this person is a listener too, but definitely an Instagram follower.
Yeah.
His or her name, I can't remember, is English of K55, and they suggested that we talk about nature. And I know we are both nature lovers, right, Sue?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
So I thought this would be a great topic to talk about. So that's what we'll do in this Simplified Speech episode. But guys, just before we start, I want to let you know about the study guide that's available for this episode. It's jam-packed with a lot of great things that will help you make the most out of studying here with us today. There's a transcript inside. There are detailed vocabulary explanations and examples. There's some questions that you could use for speaking practice or writing practice. And there's a quiz and probably even more in there as well. I can't remember everything off the top of my head. So if you want to check that out, just visit culips.com and you can give that a download. Okay, Suzanne, let's talk about nature. Again, this is a very big topic, and this conversation could go in many different ways. So where should we start? Well, I know that you are a city person, right? You're from New York City.
Yeah.
So growing up in New York, while you were living in New York, did you get to spend much time in nature, or were you mostly in the city?
I really didn't. I didn't have a family that was very nature oriented. So I really spent most of my time in the city playing city games like hide and seek and, stickball, which is like you have a stick and a ball. Like we played outside, we played outside a lot. Even if it was snowing, we would play in the snow. So I always loved being outside, but it was really a city childhood. When my parents would take me places, it was really like to Broadway, to the Metropolitan Opera, city activities, cultural experiences.
Okay.
So, yeah, I didn't get a lot of nature experiences, although I was a Girl Scout.
Okay.
I was part of the Girl Scouts, and we would go camping a few times a year, and we would do a lot of nature activities. And I think if it weren't for the Girl Scouts, I wouldn't even understand nature, as a child. So thank goodness for the Girl Scouts.
And for our listeners who aren't familiar with the Girl Scouts, we should probably just quickly explain what that is. I was never a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout, but I was in a similar organization. But from what I understand, Girl Scouts, it's an organization for probably elementary school aged girls, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of learn about nature and some survival skills. And what else do you learn in Girl Scouts?
Sell cookies.
Yeah, you got to sell cookies. That's why they're famous, right? Because
you become really good salespeople.
Every year, the Girl Scouts do a fundraiser where they raise money for, I guess, the organization and for the different trips and activities that the Girl Scouts do. And so to raise money, they sell cookies, and the cookies are really famous. When I was a kid, I remember the Girl Scouts would knock on your door and come to your front door. Yeah. And
it was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that. I know this episode is not about Girl Scouts, although we totally could make an episode about Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Right.
Because that is a very American and North American thing, I think. But yeah, it's sad because, in fact, meeting Olivier, he really inspired me to, we go camping a lot. We go to rent a chalet or like a cottage a few times a year, and we go hiking. We take day trips to go hiking in nature now. And I didn't learn even snowboarding until I was 33. So I learned a lot of these sort of outdoor sports that require you to be in nature later in life. So that's unfortunate, but that's what happens, I think, when you have a very city-focused upbringing.
Right. But it's great that you get to spend some time in nature now. Like,
yeah,
it's
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not always good at it. And Olivier laughs at me how much of a city person I can be. And how about you? You probably have a very different upbringing than me.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'm kind of the opposite of you because my childhood was spent a lot in nature, and now I'm living in the middle of one of the world's biggest cities, and there's not as much nature around, so it's kind of completely opposite of your experience. So when I was a kid growing up, the area right behind my house was a forest. So I had my backyard and then it was just forest. There were no other houses behind us. So my brother and my sister and neighborhood kids and I, we would always go outside and spend a lot of time in the forest. There were some cliffs, which at the time seemed like they were really, really high, that we used to love climbing. I'm sure if I went back there now, they'd be like 2 meters tall or something, they're not. But at the time, they seemed like these really big cliffs. We used to climb up them, and we would build tree forts. So,
fun.
Yeah, make tree houses and tree forts.
That's fun.
Yeah, spend a lot of time just, going through the forest looking for wood, looking for old things that people had left behind to make a tree fort. So we would do that, and there were trails that we could ride our bikes on. So we did a lot of mountain biking. So really, a lot of my younger days were spent outside. All of my playtime was spent outside. And then, of course, in the winter in Canada, we're doing a lot of tobogganing and sledding and skiing and snowboarding, ice skating. So my childhood was,
Yeah.
ruled by the outdoors, ruled by nature. I spent
By nature.
a lot of time out there. But now, I'm in the middle of the city and it's hard to get to an area where it's just quiet. And that's one thing that is hard for me to adjust to life in Seoul here, is that, in Canada, you could just kind of get out of the city easily. But in Seoul, you're kind of, even when you go outside of Seoul, it's still big city everywhere.
Yeah, that's it, right? In Montreal, you can drive just even a half hour and you're in nature. So it's easy. I forgot to say that I did move to Texas when I was 12. So when I got there, I did experience a lot more nature just because there's more nature there and it's less of a dense city in Houston. And I did go on ranches and stuff and see a lot of horses and armadillos.
Nice. Armadillos.
Those are fun.
Those are funny animals.
Yeah.
So, Sue, I should mention that these days, one thing that I am doing, because I'm kind of trapped in a city, is I guess I just started doing this recently for the last maybe 2 or 3 months. Every Friday, I usually put some time aside on Friday to try and go to the mountains, because there's lots of mountains in South Korea. So I go to a different mountain and go for a hike. And I've been trying to get some nature time in that way. And I've noticed that it's been really great for my mental health. Like, it's very refreshing and it's a great opportunity to think. I try to take paths that aren't too popular. And that's one of the reasons I go on Friday, is because the weekends have too many people. And when I go there, I always make sure to take my headphones out and just try and surround myself by the sounds of nature. These days, it's springtime now, so there's birds chirping, the water is flowing, there's little waterfalls, and it's really lovely. It's been a great way to spend the last few months.
That's a great ritual to have. Maybe you can take a picture on your nature walk.
Well, it's supposed to rain, so I'm really crossing my fingers that it doesn't rain, but the weather forecast is calling for rain, and it's raining right now, so who knows? But if I do go for the nature walk, guys, I will definitely take a picture.
Something that I am always fascinated by about nature is how cruel it can be when you see the natural cycle of life, and you just sort of see how certain animals are just prey to other larger apex animals, or how, hurricanes and rains can really affect people's lives, or earthquakes, or the natural, growth and death of nature. And it's humbling and very fascinating.
Well, you're absolutely right, Sue, that nature is not kind. It's one of the most fascinating things to me, just how perfect a system nature is, but nature is not kind. There's no compassion in nature. And, my girlfriend loves animals and nature too, and she always follows like these cute animal Instagram accounts, like where they're just like warm, heartwarming stories about like a pigeon and a bunny become friends or something like this. But
I love that stuff.
I like that too. But I thought she was getting a kind of skewed view about what nature is about. And one of the accounts that I follow on Instagram is totally the opposite. It's called Nature is Metal. Have you ever seen the account Nature is Metal?
No.
I wouldn't recommend it for any of our listeners who don't want to see the reality of nature, because this account is all just about the reality of nature. So you see like a bear hunting, a bear will be eating fish, or like an owl will come and eat baby birds from a nest or something. And of course, I don't like to see animals die. It's not about this at all, but it is really just humbling to see the reality of nature. And it kind of reminds you that like, oh yeah, I'm just like an animal living in this world too. And if it wasn't for this house, that I live in, that would be me. I would be having to run away from these predators too. So I think between the accounts that my girlfriend likes to look at and the one that I follow, Nature is Metal, I think we get like this kind of perfect perspective of the animal kingdom and of nature.
Yeah, it's true. It can be surprising and beautiful and adapting in these adorable ways, and then also in a very scary and shocking and cruel way as well. And I think that's important for us to realize, and it's humbling and it demands respect, right? Nature demands respect, and especially now, I find. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Suzanne, I'm getting a beeping in my earphone here reminding me that my battery is about to die. So I think we should probably wrap it up here before I get cut off. So guys, thank you for tuning in and listening to Suzanne and I talk here about nature today. If you have anything that you would like to add to the conversation or let us know about, you can send us an email or reach us through social media. Sue, could you remind our listeners what our email address and social media accounts are?
Absolutely. So we love hearing from you guys, and you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube. Gosh, we're everywhere. Just simply search for Culips, Culips, English podcast, and you will find us. And you can also always send us requests, suggestions for future podcast episodes by emailing us at contact@culips.com. We love to hear from you guys.
That about wraps it up for us. We'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Here are the answers to the listening comprehension questions. Number 1. Suzanne was a member of the Girl Scouts. Number 2. I built tree houses and tree forts in the forest behind my house. These are the same thing. Number 3. Suzanne was 33 when she learned how to snowboard.